Hey, good Monday afternoon. Thanks for joining today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Fox, and we are tracking storms across the northern plains today. We are also tracking storms across the East Coast and down in Texas. Now, we had a lot happen over the weekend, including the landfall of Chantal, which made landfall as a tropical storm. Heavy rain and flash flooding is now what we're expecting across the mid-Atlantic today, which does include, of course, that flash flood risk. Now, we got a little funky wording here, but something very serious. I want to direct your attention to those fatal floods out in Texas this weekend, unfortunately taking many lives across the central and southern portion of the state. And unfortunately, they are still getting rain today. So we'll talk about additional rainfall that we are going to see today. And then we also have severe storms across the plains. So after that, we'll take you up to Nebraska and South Dakota, where we are expecting large hail, the risk for several tornadoes, and high winds across the plains today. Now, I know we have a busy forecast. Yes, we mentioned several different regions of the country, including the central portion of the country, Texas, and then all the way up the East Coast. We've even got some high wind expected through the Midwest as well. So comment where you're watching from today, and hopefully we can tailor this forecast exactly to where you guys are watching from on this live stream. But let's go ahead and talk about what we saw yesterday. Do you guys want more details on that Denver hailstorm yesterday? Let's start out in St. Louis, where we did have a tornado reported just to the east of St. Louis here. But let's go to Denver, because I know that we talked and we saw it on the radar yesterday. Our meteorologist mapped it, and then we stuck it on Facebook this morning. So you can find this map exactly, this hail map at hailtrace.com, but you can find more details at Facebook, where we have a bunch of pictures on there as well. Let's actually go ahead and take a look at that hailstorm yesterday with your hailstorm highlight. It was a 4-star hailstorm out in Denver. What we saw was 1 inch, maybe up to ping pong ball size hail, some larger hailstones down in Colorado Springs, which did push this to a 4-star hailstorm. 2-inch size hail was the max hail size here. About 180,000 homes impacted. Holy moly. So let's go through this. Obviously, a lot of people impacted by that hail straight through Denver. Not terribly large, quarter to ping pong ball size hail. Really, that large hail came down in Colorado Springs, where we did get a 2-incher down in the Broadmoor area. So yeah, a lot of people impacted by hail across Colorado yesterday. Could we do it again today? That's the question. Well, we'll see, and we'll take a look at the hail maps here in just a few minutes. Taking a look at the radar right now, it's pretty quiet across the East Coast. This is an area that we're watching for flooding today. And we also have another flood across Texas as well. And you can see that we have some slow-moving, ongoing showers and storms that will increase flood risk across the central portion of Texas. Unfortunately, in a very vulnerable area, an area that has already seen storms within the last 48 hours that has caused devastating and fatal flooding in this area. So unfortunately, we are seeing even more storms right now. So let's break this down, right? We've got that flood risk today. We'll talk about that. We also have that severe storm risk, and I think a lot of people are jumping on here for that hail risk. Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. Where are we expecting the largest hailstones? We'll get to that. And then we've got that wind risk all the way up the East Coast into the Midwest and even into the Tennessee Valley. It's stretching so far, it's falling off the map right there. For tomorrow, we have another risk for storms across Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas, and even portions of the East Coast. And on Wednesday, we go back up to the north into the northern plains. We even have another risk for storms on Thursday as well. So let's break this down. What do we see right now? A few showers and storms across Texas, a few showers and storms across the East Coast. Really, we're pretty quiet other than just a few isolated storms that are moving through South Dakota right now. But we should expect more severe storms in that area later on today. Now, taking a look at those storms across Texas, I told you that these were very slow moving. So what you're looking at here is a view of the radar over the last 2 hours. And really, we don't see a ton of change in the radar in Texas. That is the definition of a slow-moving storm. It just sits in this area, and it keeps raining over and over, with sometimes those rainfall rates increasing to a very, very devastating level, bringing too much rainfall too quickly. There's nowhere for it to go. Moving on to the East Coast, we also have a little bit of rain in this area as well. Current temperatures. It's for most of the country. We've got a few hot ones out there, like Atlanta at 92, Las Vegas at 93. It's a hot one today in Las Vegas. Now, moving up to that hail risk, okay? We're going to do hail, wind, and tornado risk. Then we'll get into that flooding risk today. Here's a look at your hail risk. What we're watching for with this map is we're watching for those deeper oranges and reds to signify larger hailstones. And where we can identify those reds, those darker oranges kind of popping out here in South Dakota, and in the western side of South Dakota, northeastern side of Colorado, really hugging that Colorado and Nebraska state line. So we've got a very clear area where we're expecting for larger hail today. Let's go ahead and take a look at your max forecasted hail size, up to 2, maybe 2.5 inch size hailstones today. I was right on the fence here. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that we could get that tennis ball size hail? I think it's possible, but I went with hen egg sized hail. You know, I always say the trend is your friend, and yesterday we saw that hen egg sized hail. So that's what I went with for today. Yeah, I think that's possible. Anywhere between 2 and 2.5 inch size hailstones for your largest, your max hail size. Now that's going to be pretty isolated. So what are we talking about for more widespread hailstones? What we're watching for here is $2 golf ball size hail. Hey, pretty significant still. Great question from Colin here. We're talking about, I love this. I love that I do already know what you're going to ask. Colin asks, you already know what I'm going to ask. I do actually. Colin wants to know about Iowa, okay? I love this back and forth that we can get because I start to learn where you guys are from and what you guys want to hear. Now, I know that we always have people on here watching from Iowa, and we always have people watching on here from Amarillo as well. So let's get into it. Yeah, that Iowa hail risk today, it's not looking too great. It looks like by the time the storms get to you late tonight, you're going to start to see those hail sizes go down. So I'm not betting on Iowa today. Amarillo, I would say you probably have a better risk for storms down in Amarillo today. I would give you like a level 1.5 on a scale of 5, maybe level 2 on a scale of 5 here. So really what we're watching for is we're watching for the largest hailstones anywhere from Grand Forks to Pierre, all the way down to Kearney, Nebraska. That's a great place to see some hailstorms today. Colby, Kansas, and Amarillo, Texas. Again, Iowa, really out of the risk for storms today. Maybe you could see some quarter-size hail, maybe some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. It's going to be those marginal severe storm risks that we're expecting in Iowa today. However, you move a little bit farther to the west, and you really see that storm risk go up. That increased storm risk goes anywhere from Grand Forks to Kearney to almost to Denver. We're going to go back to the east of Denver. Okay, so what we're talking about here is that level 1 tornado risk today. That's a level 1 on a scale of 4. And again, Colby, Denver, just barely out of the risk today. Kearney, Nebraska included in that risk today. We're going to move up to the north here and getting into Fort Pierre out of the risk as well. Grand Island, Nebraska. Let's see about Grand Island, Nebraska. You guys are going to test my geography knowledge here. Alrighty. Grand Island, Nebraska is on the southern, what would we call this? Like southern eastern side of the state, right along I-30 there. I think that that's a great place to see those severe storms today. Actually, let's go back down into this map right here. All right, so Grand Island, Nebraska would be like right near Kearney, Nebraska, is that correct? Maybe just to the east of there. So you're just out of that tornado risk. However, you are in that hail risk. So I would say that's a pretty good spot. And again, remember, I put that red, that high risk for Kearney, Nebraska. So I would say that probably goes for Grand Island as well. And we'll get into the timing of this as well here in just a few minutes. Now let's talk about that wind forecast. So that wind forecast, we're talking about 60, 65, maybe up to 70 mile per hour wind gusts today, anywhere from Grand Forks all the way down to Amarillo. So a lot of people included in this high wind risk today. And then we also have a few storms. They're going to be pretty isolated, anywhere from Nashville all the way up to Columbus, Ohio, and even into places like Vermont, expecting some of those stronger wind gusts today. But I really think that the best place to get high wind will once again be across the plains. Very similar to the place that we talked about, that large hail and that tornado risk, okay? So there's your wind risk out to the east. Let's move on to that timeline here. So we're going to start with the Dakotas, and then we'll go down into places like Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska as well. All righty, let's go ahead and start with the Dakotas here, where we are watching storms increase in coverage. So we see more storms expected as we head into the afternoon and evening hours, and they also increase with intensity into the evening hours as well. So we are expecting more storms out into places like Minnesota as we head into the late night tonight and into early tomorrow morning. Now let's hop down. Let's go down to the south here into places like Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa. So you can see Iowa in the corner of the screen right here. What we're really watching for are these initial storms in between about 3 and 5 o'clock tonight. That is where you're going to see the best chance for storms that will form right to the west of the Colorado-Nebraska state line, and then they'll move across that Colorado-Kansas state line here. What we're watching for, these are going to be the strongest storms. So between about 5 to 8 o'clock tonight, that's when we're expecting the strongest storms to hit, most severe, the ones with the largest hail, right? All righty, let's look at Iowa here. Let's talk about your timeline for Iowa. Again, it's late tonight. And whenever those storms lose the heating of the day, that heat is going to fuel storms. Whenever it's this far into the night, usually we lose a lot of that heat. And it's really, really hard to get that larger hail whenever we have weaker storms. You know, they're disorganized. They're going to be a pretty decent rainfall producer. However, the hail, probably not going to be there. You may get some wind out of this. I would expect some high wind, especially with this kind of Boeing line segment right here. You could get some high wind as these storms cross over I-35. Again, that'll be late tonight and into early tomorrow morning. All right, let's go out to the east and talk about the high wind and that flood risk out here. So you can see that we've got scattered showers and storms expected all evening long. I do think that flood risk goes until 6 o'clock tonight, anywhere from New York all the way up to Pennsylvania and down into Virginia. Now moving into that Texas risk for storms today, very similar to what we saw this morning. We will continue to see showers and storms this afternoon. Now I think that they will slowly start to calm down this afternoon. Maybe we'll see Texas pop up here. Hang on one second. All righty, Texas. There you go. Okay, so again, we have those showers and storms ongoing right now. We will continue to see that into the afternoon hours. However, slowly but surely, they will become more isolated this afternoon. I do think that we get a little bit of relief this evening. However, you still need to stay weather aware, because what we saw this weekend was that models didn't handle the rainfall totals very well. We knew that there was going to be a risk. We knew that this was going to be some sort of issue. However, we didn't know the extent and the intensity of it. So I would say weather aware, keep checking models over and over and over. Keep checking with your local meteorologist, whether that be the National Weather Center, your local National Weather Service, or your local TV meteorologist, or DM us. We're pretty good about going back to our DMs here. Now, here is that flood risk for today. Again, because we told you that these storms are just sitting over Texas today. We have a flood risk anywhere. It's just level 1, but it's still something to be aware of. Anywhere from Iowa all the way up to Minnesota, including all of the Dakotas and Nebraska, all the way down to New Mexico. We also have a flood risk all the way up the Midwest and East Coast here. So let's go to the East Coast first. One thing that I find really interesting about this is the leftovers from Chantal that made landfall this weekend. So Chantal made landfall as a tropical storm this weekend, now bringing lots of rain to the East Coast, just right along the coast here. I think we do have watches in effect until 6 o'clock this evening. That's when Chantal will finally make its exit farther off into the Atlantic and then really just hug the coast as it goes back up towards Maryland, moving up to the north and east into the overnight hours tonight. Now let's head back down into Texas and let's talk about that severe rainfall that we are expecting down in central Texas today. Rapid flash flooding. This is what the Storm Prediction Center called this risk for today. Rapid onset of flash flooding. This is a very vulnerable region where we have already seen devastating floods in this region. Any amount of rain on top of this could bring on that flash flooding again, that very, very intense level of seeing the water rise very, very quickly. today. So that's possible if we have these ongoing storms, right? We still have storms in this area, so we're going to see that as we head into the afternoon and evening hours. And you know what's interesting about this rain right here is this actually comes from Barry, which made landfall last week, and then that system traveled up into Texas, brought all of that tropical, very moist air with it. It ran into a boundary up in central Texas, produced an MCS, which produced just heavy rainfall throughout the weekend, bringing us some very, very tragic events. And of course, again, just a reminder here, all of that was brought to you by Barry, which made landfall last week. What we like to remind people of this is, even though we say the remnants of Barry, which sounds like the leftovers, not very impressive, right? The leftovers can still be very, very impactful. So just a reminder, here's what we talked about. I know that was a very busy forecast, but we have severe risk for storms across the northern plains today, including that hail, wind, and tornado. We have high wind risk anywhere from the Midwest all the way up the States, the East Coast here. We have a flood risk across the East Coast as well, and we have a flood risk down in Texas. Moving on to maybe a little notification popping up on my screen over here. Moving on to Tuesday, brand new information now. We are upgraded to a level 2 risk, across Oklahoma here. I got a little confused. I thought I was looking at Texas. I'm like, hang on one second. We do have a level 2 risk across Oklahoma here. We have level 1, a marginal risk across Colorado as well for Tuesday. And you look up to the northern plains on Wednesday. That is where you see the next risk for storms. Now, a lot of these storms are driven by the upper level high winds in the atmosphere. So you go all the way up in the atmosphere, you get those high winds, and that's where those storms will be driven from. You know, honestly, the lack of high winds down in Texas just means that these storms down in Texas can sit in the same spot for a long period of time. What we need really is we need something to push this moisture out of Texas. But what we have is we have a high pressure system just sitting off to the west here. And as long as that stays in place, it may be very, very difficult to get all of that moisture out of the central portion of Texas. And it looks like it will stay in place, maybe pivot just a little bit as we head through the rest of the week. And I think that's it. I think that is your forecast for today. Let's see. Ooh, temperatures a little bit cooler down in Texas today. What other questions do we have this afternoon? Just a lot of questions about Nebraska and Iowa. I love it. Well, Colin, thank you for asking those questions. If anyone else has any hail, flood, tornado, wind risk questions, we're pretty good about answering our comments and DMs after the forecast is over. Taking a look at temperatures as we go throughout the next few days, I don't see any significant changes here. It looks like we're favoring the 80s and 90s for most of the country into the middle of the work week. So there you go. Thanks for joining us today. Ooh, where did we go to? Storm relative velocity? Where did that come from? Here's what I actually wanted. All righty, thanks for joining us today. If anything significant pops up across the plains today, we'll be back here. We will be live streaming it and covering those severe storms. If you need any more information on a hail, wind, or tornado map, you can give us a call at 855-334-4245. We have all of those storms from the weekend mapped at hailtrace.com. So head over there to take a look at your storm maps. But we break those down into hail, wind, and tornado maps as well. Follow us in the meantime on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We post quite often on there to give you any updates about storms that have already happened or are currently happening. And for the rest of your weather forecasts, we go back down into Oklahoma tomorrow with that level 2 risk for storms down in Oklahoma. We'll join you here same time, same place for your forecast tomorrow. So we'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for joining us today.